Hello there, this is Sky News at 9. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making tomorrow's headlines with the political editor of The Sun, Tom Newton-Dunn, and Middle East commentator Nabila Ramdani. Welcome to both of you. We will, first of all, let's get tonight's top stories. The cost of living is now at a 3-year high, with soaring food, fuel and energy prices blamed for the latest increase. Inflation went up to 5.2% in September, a rise of 0.7%. RPI, the retail prices index, which includes mortgage payments, rose to 5.6%. Well, a short time ago, the Governor of the Bank of England had this warning on the UK economy.
Markets now realise that before the crisis, banks were seriously undercapitalised, and so now react in a volatile way to any news about the health of the banking system. And the indebtedness of governments around the world is certainly greater. Time is running out.
The Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit has returned home after 5 years as a captive of Hamas. At the same time, almost 500 Palestinian prisoners were released from jails in Israel. A new vaccine against malaria is reducing the chances of contracting the disease by half. That's the initial result of a trial involving young children in Africa. Microsoft chairman Bill Gates, whose foundation focuses on malaria research, welcomed the breakthrough.
The results being made available today do represent a huge milestone. I want to congratulate the large number of partners who've been working on this project for decades. It is phenomenal that we've shown that a vaccine can have an effect against malaria in a large phase 3 trial.
A prison chaplain has told the Joanna Yates murder trial how her killer planned to change his plea to guilty. Peter Brotherton said Vincent Tabak confessed 3 weeks after his arrest. Earlier, Miss Yates's mother wept when the court was shown a photo of her dead body. Well, that is today's news. Let's take a look at tomorrow's. Some of the papers are a bit late coming in because it's football night, obviously, in the Champions League. We'll get more from our sports editor, Nick Powell, on that in just a moment. But let's take a look, first of all, shall we, at The Independent. And the picture there of Gilad Shalit being welcomed home, looking, as we said, pale and thin, certainly.
Yeah, he would be after 5.5 years in prison. He looks very frail and not so much in good shape, but I assume it's been the same for all the Palestinian prisoners who've been detained in Israeli jails as well. And the focus, however, is very much on this one man and this one symbolic release on the Israeli side. But I think overall it's being seen as a win-win situation by both sides. The vast majority of Israelis, 80% of the public, are extremely happy about this exchange. And same thing on the Palestinian side. We've seen through your report on Sky News how there are celebrations on both sides. So it also shows that when the political will is there, both sides can actually talk, and Israel can also negotiate with radicals like Hamas. So it's, in my opinion, very encouraging.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? We focus on one Israeli, and 470 Palestinians have been released today. I mean, it's amazing the value that Israel puts on one individual. But I guess it's because of the conscription. Many families in Israel, share the pain, I guess.
Plus another 500 more Palestinians to come, and potentially in a few months, one for 1,000. But no, but that's. I mean, I've interviewed the then wife, now widow of another soldier, one of the 2 soldiers who was kidnapped by Hezbollah on the Lebanon border at the start of the 2006 war. At the time, he was still missing. She was full of hope. We're going to find him. He's going to come back. They later announced that he was dead and had been dead for years. And it's that what it does to the families, which is deep inside the Israeli consciousness, is quite abominable, really. I mean, clearly it's the same on the other side as well. There's the 2 sides. There is little difference between the wrongdoing, really, when you look at it from that perspective. But I have to say, I mean, it's a great human interest story, and the picture's extremely powerful. But note the slightly chubby bloke on the left-hand side of Shalit there, which is of course Netanyahu, and that's what this is all about. It's all about making him look good in pictures like that. This isn't really about the peace process, and I don't think this really will change the peace process one iota with the 2 sides, massive poles apart.
We will come back to this in just a moment. Nick Powell is here, which obviously means a game or two has finished. Slightly uncomfortable for one of the Manchester clubs tonight. Bring us up to date, Nick.
Quite comfortable for both of them for a long
Right.
one. I was going to also tell you that Wayne Rooney was going to be all over the back pages because he has been the man who's won the match for Manchester United in Romania. 2-0 it finished. 2 penalties for him. One of them he was brought down for himself right at the very, very end of the game in injury time. Nemanja Vidic sent off for Manchester United in Romania. The Romanians themselves had a man sent off for a second yellow card near the end. So United doing okay, getting their first win. But the headlines are going to be stolen away from Rooney probably by a very, very late dramatic winner from Sergio Aguero on a sub for Manchester City, who were in real trouble, in real danger of not making the knockout phase, and that's not what the owners want from Roberto Mancini and his team. But Aguero on a sub, 10 seconds from the end of the allotted period of injury time, slotting the winner. They'd been a goal down inside the first 5 minutes to Villarreal of Spain, came back with an equaliser from an own goal before half-time. Didn't play very well in the second half, frankly, but have scraped through 2-1. They've still got a lot of work to do to qualify, but they're in with a chance.
Well, I was going to say to you, where are they at, if you like?
Well, then it's now very, very tight between them and Bayern Munich and Napoli, who just come to the end of their game. Villarreal are right out of it. So those 2 from those 3 to go through. 3 more games to go. Show you the goals from those games tonight on Sportsline 10:45.
Lovely, and as soon as that game finished, more of my papers started coming through. So the button has been pressed on the stories, I think, hasn't it? Nick, thanks very much indeed. We'll come back to The Independent. The Guardian is just in, so I just want to see what they're leading on. They're going with this malaria vaccine, which could save millions. We heard Bill Gates talking about it there. Clearly, he's put a lot of money into this, and this is obviously an illness that kills millions of people around the world. I know you're sitting there reading it. The long-awaited results of the largest ever malaria vaccine study involving more than 15,000 babies and small children show that it could massively reduce the impact of the disease. Malaria takes nearly 800,000 lives every year, most of them children under the age of 5, damaging, of course, many, many more. So obviously a breakthrough, certainly, in this dreadful illness.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see how much this plays into, I suppose my political head would say, how much it plays into the government's, UK money has obviously gone towards this. It helps the government in their incredibly long, hard battle to persuade people that huge amounts of increased British aid spending is worthwhile and useful. Well,
the brainchild, this is the vaccine of scientists at the UK drug company GlaxoSmithKline, which is just down the road from us here at Sky. So obviously that's their lead story. What else are they going on? A picture there also of Gilad Shalit, dressed interestingly in his soldier's uniform, now a sergeant, of course. Why would they do that, do you think? Just to remind people that that's how he was captured originally?
And also to remind people that, especially on the Israeli side, that the Israeli government is committed to bring back home its soldiers. And he has to be said that he has been promoted during his time in jail. He was captured as a corporal and he's now been released as a major sergeant, as we understand. But I think the focus on, the front pages on this one man really encapsulate the imbalance of the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What we are not told are the intricacies of the deal. 2,000 Palestinians, for example, have been killed since Shalit has been captured. There are also some Palestinians who argue that are angry at the suggestion that, as you said, Tom, one soldier is worth 1,000 plus Palestinian lives. And what we are not told as well is that the vast majority of the Palestinians who have been put in prison, in Israeli prisons, have actually not been tried. They've been sentenced to lifelong sentences by military courts. And yes, there are criminal elements who have been released, but the most dangerous elements are going to be deported abroad and not allowed to go back to their homes.
We had pictures from Damascus coming in a short time ago, actually, where some of the forced exiled people will be heading. So, as you say, a number of countries in the area have volunteered to take some of those exile prisoners who perhaps can take their families with them, who knows, but it's not the life they had intended. Wanted to point out the story on the right-hand side. A failure of judgment, the damning verdict on Fox. As somebody who's been both defence and political editor, what's your take on this one?
Well, I've got to know Dr. Fox rather well over the years. I'm not sure how much more we're going to have to do with him, really, to be brutally honest, certainly in the front line of British politics after this report today, which I've literally just come straight from Westminster, where everyone's still sort of trying to digest it. And it's not the full story, and there's a lot of the money trail, which there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. Number 10 are now saying, well, we've done our bit over to every other regulatory body we can think of. We want to wash our hands of it. But I mean, there are a couple of lines in this stuff that really are very damning for Dr. Fox that we didn't know about before. The one that we're going on tomorrow on our bit of it on our front page is the strong suggestion by Sir Gus O'Donnell that by giving over his diary to Adam Verity, lock, stock and whatever, and we know Adam Verity then shared this with other people, various businessmen he met in Dubai at various breakfast tables, doing the big, yeah, don't worry, my mate Liam's coming to town later on, we can have a meeting. He opened up not just Dr. Fox, so this is Fox now, but also all the people he was travelling with to a pretty serious security risk. Liam Fox travels with the head of the army, the chief of the general staff, the chief of the defence staff, very senior people who the nerdy world really want to know where they are. That is unforgivable, really, opening up senior military people to that sort of risk. And the other one that was very damaging, sorry, just to finish, was that it also turns out today, something we didn't know before, he was warned very, very carefully and clearly by Ursula Brennan, his permanent secretary, that he should be very careful about his dealings with Verity. It looked bad, it really stank. This was during the business cards row they had earlier in the summer. And yet, he pushed on regardless. Two really bad errors of judgment. I think it's going to be very, very hard indeed for him ever to come back from.
You wanted to say?
Yes, I just wanted to add that further revelations include that Israeli officials were sharing sensitive intelligence with Mr. Verity, thinking that he was indeed an advisor to Liam Fox.
That's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, and especially if they're talking about Iranian nuclear capacity or whatever it is about the Palestinians. I mean, they are going to be privately livid, as indeed are the Americans, who Verity had a steak dinner with. They had one of their top Afghan generals.
And he got introduced to the US Defence Secretary as well, didn't he, Mr. Gates? So
he did, albeit when the Tories were still in opposition.
Right,
But I mean, it's appalling judgment and laid out in black and white. Finally, the money trail is another argument which we're probably going to bore people sentences with for many more days. But this in black and white is, I would be amazed if Liam Fox came back to the cabinet.
We're going to return to some of these stories. I just wanted to very quickly point out also the Jewish Telegraph, Manchester's only Jewish newspaper, one of the Jewish papers in this country, reacting a photograph there of Gilad Shalit. After 5 years in this Gaza hellhole, they say Gilad Shalit stepped to freedom and said he thought he might have been held in captivity for many years to come. Just a last thought on this one until we see what the other papers are doing.
Yeah, the angle here is interesting because it focuses very much on the international support for the release of soldier Shalit, and it has to be noted as well, the tone of the paper is very blunt. It says, for example, that various British, Jewish and indeed Zionist organizations have campaigned for the soldier who was kidnapped by Arab terrorists. Well, it's not that clear-cut, it's not that black and white.
One of the other big stories around today is the economy, which also makes it onto both of the other front pages. We've got families now spend half their income on rent. That's the Independent's take on it. And if I go to The Guardian as well, back down there, it's in places like Concert that the cuts are really biting deeply. It's not so much necessarily about the spending cuts now. It's about inflation, isn't it? It's about what Mervyn King said today, which is that the economy and the Eurozone really is in desperate straits at the moment.
Well, I suppose there's two good news, bad news to the government today. Bizarrely, the good news is if inflation goes up, actually in real terms, you've got less of a debt to pay back because it's all being swallowed by inflation, which is why George Osborne, quietly, and he'll never admit it, doesn't mind a bit of inflation going.
But
obviously, the bad news is it's killing people at home who have got to pay higher electricity bills, higher petrol bills for their car, higher food bills, the absolute lot. And actually, the bad news for the government is they've got to pay an extra 1.8 billion in benefits. Because September's the month used to judge
benefits and pensions, yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's an awful lot of more money that Osborne's going to have to come up with somewhere. So, I mean, to be honest, do not expect any good news anytime soon on the economy with the Euro Summit coming up this weekend, which could herald the either the salvation or the end of the financial world as we know it. But it's going to be a grim old autumn.
Well, it means that the shocking inflation rate means that the essentials are soaring, as you said, food prices, fuel prices, light and heating, essentially. And the two most vulnerable groups are, in my opinion, the elderly, who can't pay their fuel bills, and the young people who cannot land a job, let alone get on the housing market.
There's another report out today, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, who's the great think tank, the economic think tank we all worship in Westminster, who said that the young families especially have had their spending power hit the hardest. So they spend now on 7% less than they were spending, say 2, 3, 4 years ago. An enormous amount of, sort of capital simply vanished in that sort of small time frame.
Okay, taking a look at some more of the papers as they come in after this short break. Back in just a moment.
Michael Jackson self-administered a dose of propofol that, with the lorazepam, killed him instantly.
Conrad Murray abandoned Michael when he needed help.
He's run from them. They've shot at him. Now he comes face to face with the Taliban.